We will be dead reckoning this trip, not relying on landmarks, astronomical observations, or navigation methods. Hello to all and welcome to the Ear-Wicker podcast. Follow along with our host, Vince Corkery, as he discusses a broad range of musical topics, with interviews of top players, club owners, producers, and engineers that make it all happen. Your virtual backstage pass. Remember to like and subscribe to this podcast, and of course, it's free. Welcome all to Ear-Wicker Podcast, and today we have a very special artist. They are Rinn Netherton.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey man, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to come over and spending it with us over here.
Absolutely.
You have to tell me how many instruments are you working on now?
Well,
I should say playing.
Yeah. So probably, let's see. We've got the violin, piano, guitar, mandolin, voice. I suppose voice is an instrument.
Right, sure, yeah.
That's probably the main list there.
That's a lot.
Well, I tried clarinet for a little bit, and I realized that
it's a different world.
It's hard to get into. Yeah, it's hard to get into the winds. Yeah. I would need to dedicate a lot of time, and
absolutely,
there's only so much time in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have plenty on your plate. But what was your first instrument? How did you get into maybe music? What was the inspiration?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started on piano. I was always really interested in music. I loved hearing music wherever it was playing as a child. I would hear a recording, and I was the kind of kid who would be in the car and I'd tell my mom, can you just play that track over and over on the cassette, because I just really loved a particular track. And I've been told that I've been doing this, since before I could remember. I just loved this,
Yes.
Some particular track off of a record. There was some Andrews Sisters song that I really liked as a very young child, and later there was some Hot Club of Cowtown playing Orange Blossom Special. I really loved that track as an 8-year-old,
Oh, wow.
But I kind of got interested in playing piano because there was a piano in the house. My older siblings started playing piano, and of course I just wanted to mimic them.
Yes.
But then they stopped. They went on to other things, and I didn't. I kept going,
okay.
And so my parents signed me up for lessons, and I did those lessons probably about 3 years. So I was about 11, and then my mom took me to the Winfield Music Festival.
Winfield, Kansas.
Winfield, Kansas, the Walnut Valley Festival.
Yeah, the big festival.
Yeah, it's really just finished this year. It just happened this last weekend. I wish I could have gone, but sometimes it doesn't work out like that.
How old were you when you went there?
I want to say I was 11.
Oh, okay.
When I went there. So that was, I don't know, 5th, 6th grade, something like that. And I remember, sometimes we have these memories that are very vivid, right? And I remember going into they have this barn where they do the contests.
Yes.
I think it's stage 4, I believe.
All right.
But it's a barn. It's a big barn with a stage in the front. And it was the fiddle contest. And I was just there because I'd played a little violin and Suzuki at school a little bit. And I was thinking, hey, this would be cool to see what this is like. And I heard Miles Thompson, who, he's been performing now for a long time. He was probably, I'm not exactly sure how old he was. He was probably, 17 or 18 at the time. And he was up there to perform, and he played Red Haired Boy, a very embellished version of Red Haired Boy that had all these fascinating, intricate lines and embellishments. And it just absolutely blew my mind.
Wow.
And I was just set on fire. And I told my mom, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So she brought me back home. And
where's home? Was it St. Louis?
It was St. Louis,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I grew up in Greve Corps.
Okay.
So she brought me home, and I said, Mom, I don't want to wait another year before I get to hear that kind of music. And can I play that? And I want to do that. And she said, I'll see what I can find. So she looked around, she found some jam sessions. We tried a lot of different things. We tried some early music sessions, like medieval music. People play that on different recorders as well as violin and other things. And that was I was like, well, this is interesting. And kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I tried out, and Winfield, of course, was called a bluegrass festival. So I was like, I want to play bluegrass. That must be what this is. So I went over to, at the Folk School of St. Louis at the time, they had these jams every week. And there was a bluegrass jam. And I walked in the bluegrass jam, and I didn't know really any fiddle tunes. I had learned a couple out of a book, but I really didn't know anything. And bluegrass jams are not the most accessible for a total beginner in fiddle music. You walk in and everyone plays the melody once and then they play other stuff. And I was still trying to follow the melody, so I kind of got lost. And I was like, well, it sounds really cool, but I don't see how I can do this. And then from the other room over, I heard the old time jam, the old time fiddle players playing some tune that I recognized from the fiddle books that I'd gotten. And I was like, excuse me, I think I'm going to go over there. And so I tried to go over there, and I never left, you might say. So that's where I really found old time music. And I was pretty much old time all the time for 5 or 6 years after that, until I was maybe 17. It was the only thing I wanted to do.
Right.
Musically, the only thing that I was interested in. I very much this kind of tunnel vision.
Focus. You were
I was highly laser focused on this old time stuff, to the point that if someone was like, "Here's a recording," but it's not old time, I'd be like, I'm not interested. I wouldn't even want to listen to it. Some stuff crept through anyway.
Sure.
I ended up really fond of Bela Fleck, Tales from the Acoustic Planet album, where it's kind of I should say, it was portrayed in the record as a jam session, and probably was a jam session to some extent, but I'm sure they had complicated arrangements they were going through. But it starts out with them all saying, "Hey, how's it going?" and good to see you, that kind of jam session energy. And I really liked that whole album.
Wow.
And that was, bluegrass. That was full bluegrass. But at the time, I was still kind of well, old time is what I feel like I can do, and I really like this. So that's how I got into fiddle music. And of course, I completely stopped practicing the piano. I went through a couple kind of stress-filled months of, I go to the piano teacher and it's been a whole week and I haven't touched the piano, and I know it and she knows it, and I'm like, especially being a kid walking to a lesson that I haven't practiced. It's just the worst feeling ever. And after a few months, my parents were like, okay, I think we'll stop the piano lessons. And I was like, yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed the time piano that I had, and honestly it was massively helpful for me, because it gave me music theory. My piano teacher, Jennifer Spohr, she was just amazing at creating that foundation for me to spring from in all of my later endeavors. She had me go through music theory books and work on that kind of stuff. You know, in addition to the regular stuff of like learning piano repertoire and you know building the ideas of like expressiveness, and you know she would say it's not a typewriter. You know, you don't press the same amount of. I didn't really get what that meant, being a kid who never grew up with a typewriter. But you know, it's that idea. You know that it's you can have a lot of different expression even in a single note on a piano, and that's only I think more so on the violin when you have just the way the bow catches the strings. So many variations available there.
And you know, speaking of the bow, your bow hand is just—it's a really spectacular. I think you know, you have such a loose and just ready. You can hit anything. You know, it seems like to me. You know, well, just what comes to your mind, it comes into the bow hand.
Yeah,
that's that's not easy to do. I don't think, but you know, that's a gift. I think. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that bowing for me, it has been largely intuitive the way that I learned it, and then I kind of went afterwards and tried to analyze what am I doing with my bow, and especially in fiddle tunes. It's like in old time, you know, well, you know, when it comes to bluegrass, bowing doesn't matter quite as much because the fiddle does not take quite as much of a rhythmic role when it's playing melodies. It takes more of a beautiful or pretty role when playing melodies or just you know playing stuff really fast. And those are all really cool things to do. But in old time, it's like there's a tradition of solo fiddle playing for dancers. So the idea of a melody where the end of the phrase is just a long note doesn't really work because you lose the beat. You know? So old time kind of came up with these ways of using the bow to express a strong rhythm in the music. And so you end up with these patterns that are often used, bowing patterns that I've totally like dug into and had a lot of fun nerding out over. But when I was learning how to do it, a lot of it was intuitive. But there were definitely some workshops. Matt Wyatt taught a workshop.
Oh, sure, Matt from Kansas.
Yeah, from I think he was in.
He's a fiddle shop there, right?
Yeah,
His dad, I guess. Great fiddle player.
Yeah, and he came to the folk school at one point to do a workshop, and he taught the technique called the pulse. It's a particular bowing technique.
Oh, wow.
He didn't call it the pulse, he called it the utma, because that's what it kind of sounds like when you play it. And that really unlocked that for me. And I've had similar experiences at certain times when someone would teach something and I would be like, oh, that's what that is. But in many cases, I just sort of was stumbling my way through.
It sounds like a aha moment or something, you know, a plateau maybe. Yeah,
I'm really grateful for those aha moments that I've been able to come across and the people who've taught them. Yeah.
Now, what were some of your first bands? Were you playing, you know, in any groups when you were 16, 17? Or?
Yeah, even when I was 13. So, I mean, I started playing for contra dances at that time when I was around 13. And so I started a band, kind of a funny name. You think of contra dances and the band that plays a contra dance called a contraband, right? So, contraband.
Well,
the name of the band was Smuggler's Cargo. Because it was a contraband.
Clever.
Very, very, very clever. So.
Who was in that?
In that band, I mean, it was basically some friends that I had from the old time jams. So on guitar, there's Alice Sanvito. On the bass, Dale Wilson, and on the banjo, there was Dan Higgins.
Oh, okay.
And there's local jam players who I still keep in touch with. Some of them, and And I think I just saw Dale the other day at a jam session that I ran, that I hosted over in St.
cool.
Charles.
Wow.
So yeah, I was playing those contra dances, and it was really fun. It was really beautiful, I think, that the community made space for, a kid to be playing these dances. There weren't very many young teenagers, or just teenagers in general, playing old time in St. Louis at the time. So I think that, a lot of people have been wonderful sort of aunts and uncles to me in the process of kind of coming up within that community.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's great support,
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about Winfield, Kansas a few minutes ago, and tell me about your experience there. You ended up going back as a fiddle player.
I did.
And entered the contest. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what year was that?
I entered the contest 5 times.
Oh.
And just by some amount of luck, I placed each time. So I have 5 trophies. And the funny thing is that every time you get first, second, or third at Winfield, traditionally you get an instrument. They give you a fiddle, or if it's a guitar contest, you get a guitar.
Whoa.
And I was accumulating these violins, and
so wait a minute. So what was the first year you won?
Oh yeah, I should say. I want to say 2012 may have been the first time that I participated, but maybe 2011. It's hard to remember. I think I skipped a year there because I was in Japan studying abroad. Yeah, I think maybe 2011, 12, 13, 14, and then 16. Those were the years that I competed.
Whoa.
And I think I got like 3rd place, 2nd place, 3rd place, 2nd place, and then in 2016 I got 1st place, which kind of a fluke. I mean, the Winfield contest, it's kind of just this weird situation where it says it's an old time fiddle contest, but then it's like, what is old time? There's many styles of old time. There's many regional styles. And there's also like contest styles of old time that vary. So you have like Texas contest style, and then you have like Appalachian style. And the style that I play is kind of a cross between Midwestern and Appalachian, but it's not a contest style. And so, but I didn't want to. And
when you say contest, it's a style where it's geared toward fiddle contests. Is that what you mean?
There's a particular style that it involves certain flourishes and certain articulations and stylistic decisions that are kind of built for contest players to. It's maybe a little more showy in some ways, but it's also quite impressive. I mean, I respect the people who play that style a lot because it takes a lot of work to come up with those arrangements and to work them in. There's a lot of like shifting and small amounts of time and double stops and very impressive stuff. And so it's like, this is how Winfield seems to be, is like every year, like 80% of the people who enter the contest are playing contest style, and then 20% of them are playing some other style of old time, whether it's Appalachian or Midwestern or something else. And I didn't want to learn contest style because it didn't feel like the kind that I was kind of used to. To me, that wasn't my old time that I played. It was like, that's someone else's old time that they play, which is great. But I wanted to go in there with my music, and so I did. And so it's kind of like, when there's a contest where people are playing different styles, how do you judge that? It can be very hard. So I don't envy the judges at Winfield. But so it's that kind of thing where the judges kind of had to make a decision. They had to make that decision of which style do we want to reward this year, and it would be different judges every year, so they'd all have their preferences, and it's blind judging, and you don't know who the judges are. So it's all sort of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. There's usually somewhere between 20 and 30 contestants. Sometimes, and I mean, the year that I won, there was less than that. There was a flood that was threatening to cause Winfield to get canceled, so I think a lot of people canceled their plans. So I ended up, I think I competed against maybe 10 or 15 other players.
Yeah. And that's all around the country. It's just not, they're not players just from the regional.
No, yeah, it is a national contest. Although, yeah, I don't know. They call it the Walnut Valley Old Time Fiddle Contest, but yeah, people call it the national.
Yeah. Well, it's a well-known.
It's considered, I think it's considered a national contest, but
I mean, a lot of great players came out of that.
Yeah, Mark O'Connor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he won the guitar contest too, didn't he?
Yeah, they made a rule for. Do you know about the Mark O'Connor rule? Yeah. And so he got around the rule by playing another instrument. Yeah. Pretty funny.
Yeah. So that's great. Okay, well, you were also recording, or I guess recording old time at this time also.
Let's see.
Because I know you had a 2018 release. It's your record.
Yeah, my self-titled record.
Yes.
Which is, it's an interesting situation with my old name.
Right.
But
is it still available? I mean,
it is still available. Yeah, you can buy it on. I have a Bandcamp website.
Oh.
It's rinnmusic.bandcamp.com, but you can just get to it with rinnmusic.com.
Okay, and spell Rinn.
Yeah, rinnmusic.com.
Okay. All right, great.
If you click on the music button, it'll get you there.
Oh, okay.
But, you can buy my CD, Roger Netherton. It's the name of the CD.
Right.
And, I made that in 2018 with some friends that I met over in West Virginia at the Clifftop Festival, or the Appalachian String Band Music Festival. I think that's the official name, but everyone calls it Clifftop.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful festival. There's a lot of different styles of music that show up there, but it is mainly various styles of old time and a concentration of Appalachian old time just because of the location. And that was a contest that I tried to perform in, and I didn't make it. I think I placed in the youth contest before I aged out of it. I think I might have gotten third or second or something in the youth contest, but I never got through never got into the finals that's all right. I've kind of not been quite as interested in contests. I think contests are useful for establishing your credentials. I think if you can walk into a situation and it says, oh, the such and such champion, it's helpful, right?
Yeah, right.
But as far as what music's about, I really don't connect much with contests. I think that music's about connecting with people and connecting with other musicians. For me, music is very communal. I know many people like music as a personal solo activity, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Just like any art, it can be a very, very lovely thing to do, very powerful thing to do by oneself. Just for me, it's always been music is something that I do with other people. Yeah. So it's a way that I connect and
it connects. It really, anyone who's listening should go and see you play.
No,
it's inspiring. You inspire people, and that's pretty special. So,
well, thanks, Vince.
Yeah. Now I know you play a swing type of or a jazz type of fiddle also. Like you're into I don't know what era, but it swings. I know that. So.
Yeah. I would say 1930s to 40s is maybe the foundation there, although I do mix in some other influences. But I would say 2018, when I came out with that old time album, was probably the time that I started feeling that I wanted to do other styles. So part of the reason that I wanted to make that album was I could feel old time was changing in my its role was changing. It was my only musical pursuit for a very long time, and I could feel it was changing into one of my musical interests. And I wanted to make that album before it moved fully away into just one of many things that I do.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I could have articulated that at the time, but I had this sense of I really want to make an album. I feel like I'm ready to make an old time album, is what I was saying. And at the time I was feeling really interested in Django Reinhardt's music and Stéphane Grappelli's music. So this is, 1930s France, and Django Reinhardt, of course, was Romani, part of the Manouche tribe, or the Sinti people.
Okay.
And so he had his deep well of musical culture that he was coming from, that he combined with the jazz music he was hearing from overseas, which you know that already.
But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, it's. I think it's good information to share.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah.
And so this kind of jazz music, hot club jazz or Django jazz, that I like to call it, it's nice for me getting into jazz. It was very nice because it was much more forgiving for string instruments. There were a lot of jazz tunes of the, say, Miles Davis era and such that they teach in jazz school. I was going to college at this time, right? And I'm taking some jazz classes, and just bunch of trumpet players and me. That's what the class is. It's a bunch of trumpets and saxes, and there's me, and so everyone's doing stuff in A flat and G flat and B flat and
horn keys.
Yeah, these horn keys, which are beautiful keys, and I play in these keys now, but at the time it was very hard to get from fiddle music into that.
Yeah.
So the learning curve was very steep, and so I found it more accessible to find my way into jazz through this Django Reinhardt music, because it's guitar and violin, and so they did a lot of tunes in D major and G major and in sharp keys, right?
Yes.
That are a lot nicer, a lot more open strings to use on the fiddle. So, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Ever since I got into it. Probably first time I played the Django Reinhardt music was 2017 or so, and I was at Jazz Jam that Paul Davis, the guitarist, Paul Davis was running, and they're very welcoming and very encouraging, and I did my best at doing a solo, and it sounded like an old time player trying to play jazz. It was just a bunch of old time licks, but I gradually got better at it. There were a lot of points in between that journey too, playing with a couple groups in Columbia, Missouri when I was going to Mizzou.
Oh, okay. That
either kind of branched me out a little into the bluegrass area or a little bit of swing direction. The K Brothers is a group that I played with for a long time when I was in college, and they really encouraged some of the bluegrass side, as well as interesting directions to take old time, which I think is very, very cool, the approach they're taking. And then there's a local band, the Calvin Street Band, just named after one of the streets that one of the people live on, and they had a very eclectic repertoire that I really enjoyed, of some folk tunes and got some blues, but there's also some swingy stuff, so I got to kind of get my feet wet with swing in some live shows in college at that time.
And you're still playing swing now.
I am.
You're in one or two groups. I'm not sure.
A few,
maybe more.
A few, maybe three groups. I suppose. There's the maybe the most well known. It would be the Hot Club of St. Louis,
right?
With Joe Park on guitar, and we've got. And that's got Paul Davis again, which I already mentioned him. He's playing rhythm guitar in that group.
Okay.
And Joey Glenn from from Pokey Lafarge and from Rum Tum Ramblers.
Great player,
on the bass. So, we cut a record last year that I think it came out early this year, I believe.
Okay. And that's on all the...
It's on all the platforms. It's just called Hot Club of St. Louis, self-titled album.
Okay.
And it's got a lot of really beautiful tunes that Joe wrote, and it's got one of mine. But yeah, Joe's tune writing is just, I really, really enjoy it. It's very lyrical. It's very very singable, which I think is beautiful. And he's able to merge that kind of singability with some of the like Django style lines and idiom, I would say, that is characteristic for the Django music. So so it was a good experience to record that.
And that's all original music. So
it's all originals, all originals.
And are you playing with that group anywhere soon, or?
Yeah, we are playing fairly soon. We play somewhat every month at the Frisco Bar Room, so that's next Saturday on the October 5th.
Okay.
2024. And we've got some other shows that are kind of in the works, some that are being arranged right now.
Good. Yeah.
Another group that I guess I'm particularly excited about because it's new.
Yeah.
Is a group called the Brick City 4, which we just started it just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, we just had it was
or is it?
It would have been last weekend.
Okay, yeah.
We played at the Schlafly Bottle Works.
Right, yeah.
And we did. So this would be.
Who's in that group?
Yeah. So I mean, there's Paul Davis again. He's playing rhythm.
Yeah.
A great rhythm player, and there's Gary Hunt is doing lead guitar, and then we have Glenn Myers who's playing bass. So, I mean, two of these members, Gary and Glenn, were both in the band Swing DeVille,
right?
All the way from 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
That played a lot of Django tunes as well as some Western swing material. I remember hearing them a long time ago, and of course I didn't know who was in the band at the time. I was just there, and remember hearing, "Wow, this sounds so amazing! I can't imagine playing this." And
well, look at you!
Now I'm doing some stuff like that. So we have a Focal Point show lined up. So
great.
I'm pretty excited for that. That's November 15th.
Ah, great. Okay.
So it's gonna be a lot of fun. And then I've had a trio as well with Paul and Glenn that we may sort of be parlaying into Brick City 4. The trio is called the Triplets of Grubville because Glenn is from Grubville.
That's right.
And the Triplets of Belleville was this old French movie that had Django in it. It's a very short version of explaining that reference. It's It's a very interesting movie, The Triplets of Belleville. It's an animated movie. There's very little dialogue. It's just about the most French movie you can imagine. It's got the Tour de France. It's got this guy is trying to save his grandma from the mafia abducting her, and he's also trying to compete in the Tour de France. And there's some. It's very silly. Very silly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's another clever, twist you have. So, did you name that band?
No, Paul came up with that name.
Okay.
It's really, he's got a great sense of humor.
That's great. So these are you're up to date on all your latest projects, I guess.
Well, my swing projects, but then I've got other projects.
Okay,
I've got
what are those?
I've got various duos that I play with. Probably the most common duo that I do is Cambia, Cambia. It's a duo that I have with Alyssa Catlin, or Alyssa Santoyo Catlin, I think she prefers now.
Okay.
And she's a classical guitarist originally, and now plays a lot of different styles. And so we do folk stuff. We do some old time and bluegrass. We do some swing.
Wow.
And we sing harmony vocals. So that's a pretty enjoyable group to do. We have the very eclectic repertoire. So it's always interesting marketing that.
All right, so have you been doing gigs with?
Oh yeah. We probably play 2-3 times a month.
Oh, great. Where are those places?
We've got one coming up at the. Well, I guess I should say we're playing a dance weekend over in Calyx, Indiana, over at the Calyx Center for think it's the Kalix Center for Sustainability. It's over kind of near Urbana-Champaign.
Okay. Yeah.
It's involved with the university there. And they have a potluck barn dance event they do every year.
Nice.
So we got hired for it this year. And
great.
so we're playing that actually this Saturday, driving out.
Wow.
And, we played at the Focal Point. We do like the U City Farmers Market is one. It's a nice venue.
Yeah, that's great. That's,
Yeah. We played yesterday.
Oh.
Well, we were going to play yesterday at the Piers store, but it got rained out. That's the Piers store on the Katy Trail.
Oh, yeah. Out in Marthasville or something.
Yeah, exactly, Marthasville. And Alyssa and I also run the Old Time Jam at Driftwood Music in St. Charles every month, which was just a couple days ago.
Wow.
Saturday.
Wow.
It's usually third Saturdays.
Oh, okay.
Third Saturday nights.
That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning old time music, it's a very welcoming environment, very beginner friendly.
Excellent. You're very busy.
Yeah, and
are you still working? You have a day gig also?
I do. But I guess I should just round out talking about the rest of the groups.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I play occasionally with Dave Black as a duo.
Excellent guitar player.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic, and a couple other kind of ad hoc here and there groups. But then I also play in this bluegrass group called, I should say Bluegrass Etc. group.
Oh, okay.
Bluegrass and other things. Very, very eclectic there too, called Moon Valley.
Oh.
So we do. It's led by Gavin Duffy, and Gavin he's a producer, he's a composer, and also kind of multi-instrumentalist, plays a lot of different stuff. He plays mandolin in this group, and we're recording our third album at this point. So we've had a couple come out, and done various shows, Focal Point, and played at the Dark Room, and played some bluegrass festivals as well. So Moon Valley.
And are these recordings also available on?
Yeah, they're all on the streaming platforms.
That's good. Yeah.
Yep, Moon Valley. And our upcoming record, we've got one of my originals on it. I'll be singing on that one, so that's kind of fun.
Wow.
And it's a great space for a lot of like cross genre experimentation. The band is somewhat modular in terms that there's a core group, and then sometimes we bring in we've got like banjo and guitar and fiddle and mando and bass, right? The kind of bluegrass quintet. But you've also got a drummer that we bring in sometimes, or a pedal steel, and various interesting arrangements that come out of that. Auxiliary percussion. It was saxophone or flute player who's very often playing with us.
Oh wow!
So
now, is this also original music, or do you?
A lot of, I should say probably half and half original versus covers of different bluegrass tunes or other things. We also have the privilege to have the vocalist Zell perform with us, and she's this fantastic vocalist. She does a lot of I believe R&B vocals style, very intricate runs and things in that style that I admire. She's very improvisational, and so she'll perform with us, and we've done some interesting fusion of like bluegrass and different kinds of hip hop or R&B styles there.
Wow. Wow, you're like cutting a new wave here, man.
Well, I don't know what to do,
really. No,
so
that's
I
great.
do a bunch of things.
That is
that's
great.
how it is.
No, you keep going. Are there any like worst gigs that come to your mind?
I mean, sure. Sure. I mean, I'm always grateful to be able to play music live. It's just it's an opportunity that I don't take for granted. there was one time that I was playing a gig. We were kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and so I think we even brought a generator to plug in our system, and it was out on a farm, I think, and they were having a party. They were having the time of their lives. You know, everybody was really, really going to town, and we were asked to play for longer than we'd originally been asked to play, and one of the musicians in the group, I guess, had been, well, they'd been offering us Jello shots. You know, this is how this thing goes, right?
All right.
And I don't hold my liquor very well, so I turned it down.
Yeah.
I'm so small, I'd pass out, after a couple shots. But one of the other band members was kind of doing it and timing it so that the end of the set he would be completely wasted. And then they said, "Can you play for another hour?" And we said, "No, we can't." And they said, "We'll pay you double."
Whoa.
And we'd already been playing for 3 hours, so it's like double for another hour. That's
good money. Yeah.
And so we said, okay. And so it was, we got through it. We got through it. And they probably didn't notice that much.
Yeah,
they were distracted. So,
that's a good one.
Yeah, maybe that's the worst gig, but it was a fun time in the end.
Yeah. Well, conversely, what are your favorite gigs, or did you have one top 5? Or?
Oh yeah, it's hard to choose.
Yeah.
I mean, I always love playing for dancers. So playing for contra dances is the thing that I've been doing the longest. And I still do that, occasionally play for kind of annual events where you've got people traveling from out of town, kind of larger contra dance events. And so those can be very fun. I mean, the energy in the room when you're playing a contra and everyone's just zoned into the music and the caller is just doing a great job, and everyone's sort of locked in, and you can vary the energy and everyone can kind of feel it, and they get so much joy out of it that it brings you up too. So it's this sort of positive spiral of positive feedback, like you're having a great time, so the dancers are having a great time, and they're having a great time, so you have even a better time.
Right.
So I've definitely had some magical times playing for contra dances,
that's
just where everything clicked together.
Wow.
And I was sort of like ascending above the material plane.
Oh, that's good.
So contra dances for sure. And I mean, there's of course just been concerts that I've done that have just been a joy, and there's something unpredictable and kind of like you have to leave it up to fate for when everything's going to align, and it's going to feel, you're going to feel that perfect feeling. It's hard to, you can't rely on it happening, but when it happens, it's amazing.
It is. You're right. All right, I'm going to ask you one more thing too. Now, if you could go back in time, and yours is not very long. I know you're young, very young. If you could go back in time, would you change your musical path?
It's something I thought about sometimes, of like, what would I have done differently? I think that one thing that I wish that I had is I wish I had been able to find a mentor. As a young person kind of growing as a musician, there were a lot of paths that I wanted to take, but I just didn't know how to bridge a particular gap. And of course, looking back on it, I know what I was missing. It's like, oh, that's what, if I had just known this one thing, it would have been all right, and I could have explored that, but I didn't know that one thing, whether it's, like I wanted to play jazz, but when people talked about jazz, they talked about Miles Davis, and the the saxophone lines in Miles Davis songs, where you have, John Coltrane doing these sheets of sound. It's incomprehensible to me as an old time player. At the time it was, and I was like, it sounds really cool, but how do I get there? And people were talking about, just learn theory and do this and do that, and it never clicked. And so if I'd had a mentor, I think I would have been able to progress faster in some ways and get to where I wanted more easily. But
you progress pretty quickly,
I mean,
if you look at it overall, I think. I mean, from standing on the outside.
Well, speed is relative, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always kind of been aware of amazing players within the various music communities that I'm a part of, who I look up to so much. Players who like go to Winfield and they win the whole thing when they're 12, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and in many cases they have a mentor that is helping, helping when they have questions of like, well, how do I get this thing?
Yeah.
How do I get this technique? And I don't think that I would have necessarily achieved that even if I had a mentor. But, it's one of those things that I think of, I kind of wish that I had that.
Well, maybe you can be a mentor,
Well, I've started trying to teach. I say trying to teach. I've started teaching fiddle.
Oh, well, that's great.
And kind of a heartwarming story. I got this email from someone a couple months ago, and the email was from this person. They were asking, and I didn't recognize who it was from or the email, but they said, in this one video of you where you're playing this, what are you doing at 2 minutes and 43 seconds? That kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, someone's really like interested in my playing. That's like very nice and kind of them to be that interested. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And so I did my best I answered, and I tried to explain what I was doing in that moment. Something with my bow, my bowing pattern that I was using in the moment. And I ended up getting in communication, and it turned out that this, and I ended up talking to his mom. This is a 13-year-old kid who's elsewhere in the country who really wanted to learn how to play like me.
Wow.
And so we ended up coming up with an arrangement where I could teach him some lessons. And that's so
great.
amazing
That's a great
to be
story,
able to
that's great. Yeah.
to pass some knowledge along. And teaching has definitely been one of these things that like there's nothing else like it. There's nothing else that feels as significant in a certain way, because you're able to bring other people up, in their knowledge or in their ability to do things.
It's an education that I don't think you can buy. You know what I mean? Even though I'm sure they're, paying you for it, but it's an education where it's priceless. Maybe I just put it that way.
Yeah, I think that putting a price on art is always a weird, weird situation.
But, it's important,
Yeah, I guess I should talk a little bit about some of the other projects that I've been involved in yet more.
Yeah.
There's a nonprofit in Maplewood called the St. Louis String Collective that I've been involved in. I've been involved with these folks for, I want to say, 4 or 5 years now, and just recently joined their board on their nonprofit board. And their mission essentially is to open up opportunity for people who are playing violin, viola, cello, and bass, the so-called string instruments, to play styles that are not just classical. So it's a very broad mission.
Yeah.
But they do things like they do outreach for schools. Like they'll go and perform at a school and show like, hey, this is what you could do on a violin or a cello that maybe isn't what you're doing in your school, right? And
wow, that's a great
they
idea.
they do a camp every summer where it's called the String Summit, and I've taught at it for a couple years now.
Great. Yeah.
Where they have experts from different styles come in to teach classes and workshops and ensembles, and it's open to, I'd say, teens all the way up through adults.
Wow.
So you've got adults who are there who just want to learn fiddle music, or they want to learn Swedish folk tunes, or they want to learn Irish, or they want to learn how to play rock. So there's a lot of really cool music that's, I think, being shared and being encouraged through
I'm
this
sure there's
nonprofit.
a website for.
Yeah, I want to say it's stlstringcollective.com.
Oh, okay, great. Well, wow, you were a busy person.
Thanks.
You really are.
Yeah, well, you got to fill the time somehow.
Yeah, well, you're doing excellent, man. Excellent job of it, and keep going, man. Don't slow down, or don't get sick, but don't slow down.
Yeah, and I guess another thing I've been doing is there are improv comedy performances that I've been doing, violin underneath. They call it underscoring.
Okay.
So I'm playing sort of music that mirrors the mood that is happening in the performance.
Oh.
So it's very improvisational and very kind of off the cuff.
Yeah.
Because it's all kind of being made up in the moment. But it's real fun, and it can create some hilarious moments.
Yeah, I bet. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah.
Wow, man. That's great. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap this up because I've been taking a lot of your time. So appreciate you coming over here and just, telling us about all your projects. And
I should plug one more.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Next Friday night, this is October 4th, I'm playing as a soloist with a big band, with the Route 66 Jazz Band, or the Route 66 Jazz Orchestra.
Whoa.
Congrats. Really grateful that they invited
Now,
me
where
to
is
do
this?
it. This is at the First Unity Church of St. Louis. It's down in South City, I want to say, or South County. South County. It's down kind of past Concord.
First Unity Church.
First Unity Church on Butler Hill Road.
Butler Hill. Great.
Yeah.
And what time? It's on a Friday?
Yeah, it's on Friday, and it's the show is at 7:30.
And you're doing a big band is behind you. Is this?
Yeah, it's a show. They've got a big band show.
Awesome.
They're doing 10 or 12 songs, and I'm going to perform on 3 of them.
Oh, great!
So I'll be
congrats, man.
playing some jazz tunes, and it's been a dream of mine to play with a big band. So it's just amazing to have that opportunity.
Yeah, wow. Well, congratulations. That is very cool.
Thanks.
So, all right, well, Rinn Netherton, if you get a chance to go see Rinn, please do. You will not be disappointed. You will be inspired. So, Rinn, thank you, and we will see you at the next gig.
Thanks, Vince.
If you'd like to speak with Ear-Wicker Podcast, please email us at vincentcorkery57@gmail.com.